All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
let's start from the beginning with a little bio. Tell us where you were raised, where you're from, and your upbringing.
Oh, sure. Okay. I am a native Washingtonian, born and raised. Let's see. When I was a kid, I used to write and draw and create comic books. And yeah, have our own little comic book company going on. Yeah, wrote poetry. Went to the George Washington University in DC, and I have journalism in political science, and felt rather that there was a story in me just waiting to come out. So being an author, writing the Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels with Frenzy! That felt so good. It's installment. And look, let me show you something. Can you all see this book? There you go, Frenzy. There you go, my baby. Here it is. Also, also to a motivational speaker and entertainer and radio host, the Wyatt O'Brian Evans show is on hiatus right now, but it'll come back in a few months. And journalist as well.
All right. Okay. Well, I want to go back to the comic book. What was one of the first comic books that you wrote?
I don't even remember the titles now because this was I was like 8 or 9 years old, but it was like patterned off of like a Spider-Man type thing, right? But they were all black. I'm a man over 40, and back in the day, you didn't see a lot, except for the Black Panther, for example. You didn't see a lot of new people of color in the comics. So my hero was like Spider-Man and sort of like Captain America together. And then I had like a team book, like the Avengers or the X-Men, that sort of thing, like 5 people. And then I had 2 or 3 other books. So.
Right. But like even today, black superheroes are not common. Because right now we just got Luke Cage. So
right on Netflix.
But
exactly.
How many other superheroes that were white became before Luke Cage even was a thought? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So let's see. Oh, I got a good question for you. Like I would have What age did you realize you were gay, and how did you tell your family?
Yeah.
That's a good one. Okay. This is really good. I'm gonna tell you a really funny story. I knew it pretty much early on. I wrestled with my sexual orientation. I really did. I had struggles with it. But when I got in college, I went to the George Washington University in DC. I had my first sexual experience with this hot librarian guy. He was like 10 years, he worked at the library, one of the libraries. And he was like 10 years older, and I kind of fell for him, but he had a partner, right? So, I cried and all this.
Oh, damn.
This is how my mother, see, I'm the only boy, and I have 4 sisters, and I'm the youngest. And my father died when I was like 4 or 5, about 5 or 6 years old. So it was just my mother and myself. And what happened was I was like a sophomore in college, man. And I started to date this guy, and I was really into him. He had his own place. I spent the night, because I was living at home when I was in college, right? I spent the night, didn't call. I should have called. I should have called. So when I roll up like 8 o'clock in the morning, this is there with my mother. And then somehow or another, I didn't hide my little green book. Instead of having a black book, I had a green book with numbers and shit, right? So they started calling people.
Wow.
I was busted. They started calling peoples. And they knew, and they said, okay, at least you could have called. So that's how they found out. Now I'll tell you another quick little story. A few years later, my sister worked for the government. She was trying to hook me up with girls, right? And I said, listen, Bertha, I said, if you have a good-looking man, hook me up with him. And she did not try that anymore. So that's pretty much how it stumbled out.
Well, at least you had a better experience than most people. I'd say that because
It was highly embarrassing.
yeah, but now you can laugh at it. But a lot of people nowadays, when they come out, they either getting kicked out or
Sure.
not having a good situation with that at all.
That is
Yeah,
so.
it is because one of my biggest fears. Me and
Yeah.
James talked about this all the time. Was about me coming out for the longest time because I come from a very religious background and I mean just devout, like everything. I mean, I've seen some horrendous stuff happen and heard some horrendous things being said about members of the family that were turned out to be gay. 'Cause I didn't see them that often because they were gay because they didn't know like it was being around. So it took me a long time to get over that. But one of the things that I think when I did come out was just it was this big relief off my chest because no, let me take that back. When I came, it was a whole other story because James heard the story before. But what I'm getting to is that when I came out, it wasn't a big, rainbows and unicorns and this big world lifting off my shoulders. And I didn't
Right.
feel all that right off the bat. It wasn't until I went to New Orleans and my best friend took me to New Orleans and had me get this big coming out experience, like delayed coming out experience. And I saw, I'll give you the link to it, but the question I'm getting to is that for me, it was going to a club and seeing these two men dancing with no care in the world with each other. These two black men.
Right.
That's, so for you, what was your eye-opening gay experience, when you first came out? Was it just like, just, or was it just like this big life-changing affirmation moment?
Well, it was for me, actually, even though I was embarrassed with what happened with my mom and my sisters, I was also relieved because I didn't have to worry about hiding anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't come out the way I wanted it to, but at least I didn't have to worry about that. That onus, that burden was lifted off of me. And like I said, I went through a lot, even after that, dealing with my sexual orientation. I even saw a counselor who really helped me a lot. And then I started to go to clubs. I felt like the same way you did, when you see two men who are not ashamed to express how they really feel about each other in a romantic way, and particularly if they're black, it's freeing and liberating. And good question, because one of the main reasons why I write for a series of novels is because I wanted to present two who are deeply, passionately, profoundly in love with one another, and who are not they're both openly gay. They're not ashamed to show it, and they're fighting to preserve in relationship. So, yeah, Mark, I totally get what you're saying.
Right. And like I said, we're gonna get to the book. I got some qualms I need to get with you about that book. But
God, you can't please everybody.
But what were some bad experiences when in the gay community that you had to deal with?
You know what? I've been lucky, man, in that, I haven't been bashed, physically. None of that. I really can't say anything, traumatic or dramatic happened to me, even up to now. So knock on wood.
Right.
So I really can't think of anything.
And
Go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, Martin from London says that, oh boy, you have just said a mouthful, Wyatt. So thank you, Martin, for your comments and questions. Keep them coming at us.
Right.
Let's keep announcing them.
Share that link.
That's Dr. Patrick. Shout out to Dr. Patrick from across the pond.
Yes, from London. Thank you.
Share that link. Make sure you share that link now. Share the page link so everybody else can join in.
And it's like 1 o'clock over there. So shout out.
And you ain't in the bed, child.
No, we really happy that you stayed up late. We love London and like out of the country people because that lets us know that we're like global now. So that's awesome. So thank you for the question.
Oh, we international now. Yeah.
Yeah, we international. You got to snip that beard.
comes out, you have to have him on the show. I'll talk to you about it later off camera.
Oh, most definitely. So you didn't have any bad experiences, but what certain things you don't like about the community that needs to change?
Yeah. Okay. Good. That's a very good question. So much racism within the LGBTQ community because, as a journalist, I've written about that. I wrote a series that was syndicated about it, and there's just racism. And sometimes, I hate to say this, white gay people can be more racist than straight gay people.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a problem with that. And I think you have some white men who objectify the Black body, looking for the physical, and they don't want to get into your mental and emotional. Also, where the Black LGBT community is concerned, sometimes we don't stick together enough. Sometimes we don't help each other enough. We don't support each other enough. And, it's just a lack of images of people of color in the LGBTQ community, in the LGBTQ media, particularly entertainment. So I do have some issues.
Yeah, because I remember, and Mark probably noticed too, that big scandal going on with Tony Banks.
Yes.
When they tried to stop his event from going on. And
I wasn't aware of that.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of craziness going on with that. I think did this start like back in the fall, like the spring, like early spring?
I don't remember. All I remember from it is that Tony wanted to do Bears of Color event, and certain people didn't like that, and they were bashing the event. They tried to stop the event. They tried to do everything they can to stop what's going on. So
they even went as far as proposing and lying as if there were like certain members of his group or whatever, and trying to they went beyond. They went above and beyond to try to really just cancel his event. You were like, why? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is the problem?
Right.
But
because we're not hurting you in any way. We're just trying to have something of our own.
Right.
Yeah.
But see, then they will say that we don't need something of our own, and we do. It's not that we're slighting the other community. It's just that we have been so underrepresented, and our images aren't as strong here in the public. We do need something. And there's nothing racist about that. It's just what it is.
Right. It's just going back to the Black Lives Matter thing. Like I said, I ain't trying to get too deep into that because that can be a totally different video by itself. But it's the same thing. It keeps thinking that Black Lives Matter, but nobody else's lives matter. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that our lives matter too.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Well, I was gonna say, if I'm saying I'm gonna move on, I just think that most of that stuff going with Tony was more of just like there's some people who feel like black men are not considered bears. That's what I got from it. Because I've actually seen a group where somebody said, I don't know why black men are claiming the bear label or something like that, and it's ignorance. And I'm thinking like part of the damn colors of the bear flag is like darker colors and stuff like that. So I'm like, why wouldn't we claim it as part of our? I'm not saying it's like that means that we're just got to be all bears are black. It's just that the flag should represent everybody.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Not just a particular group.
Well, the pie is big enough for everybody to have a slice. That's how I feel about it.
But there's nowhere. Okay, when you do the qualifications of a bear, in every qualification, it don't say white, but majority of the qualifications are hairy dude, beard, stout, chubby, fat, whatever you want to call it. But over the years, I never heard it say, "Oh, it is strictly white." I never heard that. So for you. So for people to come out and say, "Oh, it's just strictly white," that's only considered bear.
Yep.
So okay. Anyway, to the next question before we go off on a
Yeah.
tangent.
I'm waiting.
Yeah.
I'm waiting.
What made you get into writing in the first place?
Wow. I think I've always had the writing gene because, like I said, when I was 6, 7, I was writing poetry. Then I was writing comic books and short stories. And I just have a passion and a love for writing. I've done a lot in more than 40 years, journalist, radio host, the Wyatt O'Brian Evans show, motivational speaker, entertainer, of course, author. And I love, James, I love creating characters, developing them, making them come to life for the reader. It's just like having a kid them and helping them to grow up. So I love it. I get an orgasm from writing. I just do. I love it. That is so part of my DNA.
Well, I think it's because people on the artistic side, we like to create something from nothing. So creating something from out of your mind onto paper and to sell it, and like, okay, this is my baby. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. This is what I created by myself.
And it's also go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was done.
No, it's also therapeutic as well. It's very therapeutic. That's how I got through a lot of stuff, my issues in college, which I just wrote. But my background kind of like started like with Wyatt's. Little small scripts here and there though. But no, it's very therapeutic, and like all three of us are creatives, and it does have this sense of this euphoric feeling when you do it, and it kind of, especially when it's like right. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, when you try, because there's some things that that's the next question I was going to ask. Like, do you have issues with getting like what you have in your mind to paper or to the screen or to the keyboard? Because sometimes that can be, you can have a clear vision of what you see in your mind, but then when you try to translate it to the paper or to the screen, to the keyboard, it becomes out totally different. So do you have issues with that at any time? So.
Only occasionally. I do know that's a very good question, Mark, because I do know other authors and writers who have that problem or not. But for me, something 90% of the time is exactly what I want to put on paper. Now, later on, I may tweak it and may make some changes, but the basic foundation originally in my head. See it. I mean, for example, I dream stuff, and I always have like a little pad next to my bed because, when you dream, you can quickly forget. So I wake up like this, and I'm up there writing down, or either I might have a recorder and I can just tape it. My stuff, I can clearly see it, put it on paper, may make some tweaks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Martin says he got some messages over here. He says that is true. Some white men can't see your pants, but not all of them. He said I have said before now, why don't you guys over there in America say black people's lives matter? And he also says, I agree with that. Remember to be who you want to be, and ooh-wee. So thank you, Martin, for being here with us. And I also just joined Great New Writers, so I'm follow the trail. But anyway, it's just I like to talk to people, other writers, because especially Black gay writers, because it's just been this whole new world opened up to me. James, we talked about this before, haven't we? Like I did another hangout celebrating Black gay writers, because I felt like they didn't, especially when the whole mess was going out with like Black Lives Matter and how a lot of the Black Lives Matter chapters were trying to force out gay members because they were saying like gay rights was not what we're talking about right now, and they didn't. I guess those people weren't informed that Black Lives Matter was formed by 4 queer women,
Right.
and one of the leading I don't call him a mouthpiece, but one of the leading members of the movement is the Ray McKeeson. I can't pronounce his name to say my damn name. Excuse my expression, but he's gay, and I remember somebody saying that they would have more Black Lives Matter members behind him if he just wasn't gay. And so I went back and just did my research and whatnot. I mean, I was known about all Black gay writers and whatnot, but I did not know that there was a plethora of them out there. So this is a question that both me and James, he wrote it down. I was thinking about it at work today. So just what issues have you that you faced as a Black gay writer?
Getting, wow, very, very good question. The gay genre is a niche, and publishers don't want to take the chance on the niche. And you're gay. If you're a Black and gay writer, you definitely have climb in order to get your stuff published. I mean, because that's one of the main reasons why I created my own publishing company, Narrowbow University. Narrowbow Universal, not University. I was thinking about George Washington University. But Narrowbow, I'm saying, God. Narrowbow Universal publishes my Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels because I went through medium, large publishing companies to try to get this published. I got 2 offers, but they wanted to change my vision. I can't have anybody changing my vision, changing my core and my essence. So I said, hell, I'm just going to do it by myself. Do it myself. And other Black gay authors that I know go through the same thing. It's that companies that are controlled 99% by white people see it's gay as niche, and then you're Black, and they will not take the chance that they would take the chance for other people. So yeah, just getting it published can be a really steep mountain to climb, but you can't give up, because if you really believe that you have a voice that should be heard by the whole world or part of the world, you need to do it. And it can be done. But that is a major obstacle right there.
Okay, so what would you say, like people like Elin Harris and I guess James Earl Hardy, like, to be honest with you, I didn't hear much about James Earl Hardy growing up, because from my area and where I'm at right now, Elin Harris shockingly became like a best-selling, but he became a must-have read at the library. And I remember when I didn't even know he was a gay Black writer, so I picked up one of his books trying to see what all these housewives were trying to read him about. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, Basil had him bent over. I'm like, whoa! I'm like, what the hell is this? And so I guess the next question I have for you is, what do you think? What do you think those two did, or what did they have going for them that made it like why they broke the barrier? Because if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, is like Eric Jerome Dickey, I believe, is actually gay, but he writes straight Black fiction.
Absolutely.
And so what do you think Elin and James each had that let them break their mold to become like fixtures? And not even those two, but even James Baldwin. I'm going to take it way back. James Baldwin, you know what I'm saying? What do you think that they had that people kind of like bypassed the look? Some of the stories dealt with the subject matter. What made them, bypass, not bypass, but ignore that element of their fiction?
I'm glad you asked that question, but let me preface this all by saying that I'm so glad that I created a company that's publishing my works myself. I have total control over it. I prefer it that way. Now, what I'm going to say is going to be controversial, and some people are probably not going to agree with it, but I know that I'm right. Okay, let's take James Earl Hardy and Elin Harris. A lot of this is being at the right place at the right time.
Okay.
Hardy came at the right time. He had my good friend Essex Hemphill. He's the groundbreaking poet, author. He kicked the door down in the 80s. We worked together. You know, he was before his time. He kicked the door down. He was at the right time. He was just at the right time in history. Same way. He came along in the 90s at the right time with the B-boy gay thing, and people gravitated towards it. So he had time on, he's a great writer, but he also had time on his side, saying something that hadn't been said before. Now let's get to Elin Harris. As far as I'm concerned, Elin Harris is not a gay author. And let me tell you why. If you read Invisible Life, his first novel, which was spectacular, eccentric, but if you notice, his following novels were not so. And what happened was he was in the right space at the right time because his main audience was always Black, straight women over into the mainstream. If you notice, if you read, go back and read Invisible Life and then read his following subsequent pieces of work, they were more mainstream. And that's what got him over a millionaire, because he was really thought of as a mainstream author to women, particularly Black women. And what he did was, I'll bet you his publishing company probably said, let's tone down the gayness so you could be mainstream. And that's cool. You have to decide what you want and what you can live with. So as far as I'm concerned, he's not a gay author per se. He's more mainstream. And you think about that. You reread his stuff. And if you notice, he has introduced more straight characters. But with Invisible Light, it was really gay. It was really gay-centric.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I can see what you. I can see that. I co-sign with that because if I'm not mistaken, some of his later works dealt with Yancey, because I know Basil was in most of his earlier stuff, and then we created Yancey, which was the female who's supposed to marry Basil. Correct if I'm wrong, and then she became like this diva who had her own line of books too. They were that's the other thing about his books was that and I'm not gonna say I've read all his books. I've flipped through them, read some of them, read some short stories in his, but I know those characters kept popping up. It was like a soap opera of some sort, like what they gonna do now? What? Oh man, Yancey got a new book out. What's she gonna do now? You know what I'm saying? Like it just so. But yeah, I can see that because what was it? Anyway, the wind blows or not a day goes by. One of those, I forget. I can't remember the title of the book, but that's the one that was circulating around my hometown. And I picked it up and I looked at it. And I was like, it just seemed like fate. I opened up the page. I opened up to, it was a sex scene. But in each book that came out, it was more. You saw like, okay, what's the woman got to do with it? It's like, I thought the book was about gay people, but yeah, I see what you're saying. I agree with you 100%. Yeah.
So ask me a frenzy question. Frenzy.
You ready for frenzy? Okay, let's get you started.
Frenzy.
Let's get you started. Well, I want to say, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask him, like, for once, I want you to talk about this Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series. Like, tell us about the series and how did it come about,
As a whole.
As a whole. Before we get to the latest chapter.
Right. Let me tell you why I wrote the series. 3 main reasons, fellas. Number one, as I mentioned before, there is such a lack of images of people of color in the media, in the LGBTQ media, particularly entertainment. Mm-hmm. Then number two, I wanted to show 2 men of color mobile, masculine, accomplished, who fell deeply, passionately, profoundly in love, and who were working hard to nurture and maintain that relationship. And then two, I wanted to address some societal issues that particularly impact the LGBT community. That's why I made intimate partner violence and abuse. The acronym is IPVA, violence and abuse within our community, the overarching theme, because as a journalist, I've researched it and written about it extensively. And then I said, let's put it in novel form to make it even more palatable to people. But let me quickly give you the synopsis of Nothing Can Tear Us Apart. And Frenzy is the latest installment. Let me just say this first, is I wrote it in the first person to make it more accessible and more intimate to the readers. So you have Wesley, one of the main characters, as narrator. So it's the present time in Washington, D.C., and you've got Wesley, who is this handsome, wealthy, Black entrepreneur celebrity. And then you have Antonio, his nickname is Tonio, who is Wes's deliciously muscular. The boy is built from head to toe, Latino partner, chief of security. And they meet for the first time when Wes is interviewing Tonio for the chief of security position. They have this instantaneous chemistry that is off the hook. And Wes hires Tonio on their feelings because, one, they were gunshot, they were burned before in the love department, so they're gunshot. And then they're asking themselves, should we really mix business with pleasure? Close friends, and they find they have a lot of stuff in common. And then Wesley gets caught up in this deadly hostage situation. And then they finally admit they're in LUV love. They form a monogamous relationship. They have all of this hot, sexy sex. Sex is in the book. Honeymoon ends because you got Tonio intimidated by Wesley's celebrity. Tonio's father tries to break them up. There's sexual dysfunction, top bottom issues, racial and ethnic tensions. And then you got Rough Cut, shut your mouth, who has it in for Wes big time. So what he does, he manipulates, exploits Tonio's insecurities. He sets Wes up to make it look like he's been cheating. Subsequently, Tonio batters Wes. That's the IPVA component. Wes kicks his fine ass to the curb. Tonio is trying to make amends. Oh, I'll go to counseling, yada, yada, yada. Wes ain't hearing it. And then there's a confrontation where Wes gets insight into Tonio's behavior. That Wes has a tragic accident, which causes him to split into an alternate personality called Walker, and Walker is deadly to the core with ice water running through his veins, and he puts Tonio through a world of pain. So the three basic questions are: one, and cray. Two, will these guys find their way back to each other? And three, will they ever be able to vow nothing can tear us apart? And their twists and turns, and the cliffhanger will blow your mind. So that's it.
Look, I'll go tell you now. Wes got on my nerves, okay? For one reason. Because every time, I ain't gonna spoil anything, but every time something goes on, it goes right. It don't go left field, it go right, left field, then right, left field. I say, oh, can it's so much going on. I'm like, you get on my nerves. Okay, I got to put the book down and walk away for a minute because you get on my nerves. It's so many. Oh, there's so much going on. I can't. Like I say, if I say too much, I'm gonna spoil it. But
yeah,
you said you had to do some research. What type of research you had to do?
Right.
For the abuse. It's a lot more than abuse in the book, but what type of research you have to do?
Okay, for the intimate partner violence and abuse component, I used a lot of the research to understand it better that I had conducted, about the issue, period. And I've interviewed scores of victims and survivors of intimate partner violence and abuse. So I really did a lot of research there. And to make a running theme through the series is if you have something wrong with, if you're mentally or emotionally, if you have some issues, you need to go see therapy. I mean, you need to go see a therapist. So what I did was I booked some sessions with a counselor, and I just, batted stuff back and forth. Does this seem realistic? Yada, 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 yada. So I actually went to a psychologist, psychiatrist for a few sessions so I could get a better understanding to write and how I needed to write it. Because I wanted it to be as authentic as possible. Because I've gone through the counseling route myself. When I was very young, I was a victim of IPVA, the mental and the emotional part, when I was in my early 20s. So I have gone to see counselors from time to time. And I will tell you that when you find the right counselor, it can save your life. It can save, you see yourself so much clearly, and you're able to see other people clearly too. Mm-hmm. So, it's not that you're necessarily crazy, just that you need a little help.
Right.
Okay. And so, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was about to say, in attempts to write this book, did you have any writer's block at all? Like, did you have difficulties? Like, okay, I can't think of none. I have to put it down. Like, what did you have to do to get past your writer's block?
I think any author worth his salt or her salt has writer's block, because sometimes you just do. But I will tell all aspiring authors to write every day. Even if you can just put 2 or 3 words on paper, you have to get into a routine and a rhythm. If you're having the block, try to write something. And that's what I did. Now, I'll tell you, section in Nothing Can Tear Us Apart Frenzy for me was when, I'm just going to tell the audience this, there's an incident of child abuse where there's a scene where an adult rapes a young boy. I'm not going to tell you who he is. And I tried to make that as realistic as I was really doing a fine line. I'm tell you why. I wanted it realistic, but I didn't want to eroticize it. I wanted it realistic because these things happen. Adults rape kids, anal rape. That's what I'm talking about. But I did not want Mark and James to eroticize it. So I had to write that thing. I think I wrote that 7 times because I wasn't in the beginning feeling it. When I got to the 5th version, I said, okay, now I'm on the right path. The 6th, I said, this is good, but it's not quite right. Number 7, that was it. The winner.
Okay.
That was the winner.
Oh, go ahead, Mark.
I was going to ask, well, this is because I remember you were promoting, when I came out the closet, I remember you was promoting Rage over around that time. So I know this is a series. So what number is this in the series?
Oh, this is number 3.
This is number 3. So this can be the trilogy? Okay. Sorry.
I'm sorry. First was Uncensored, then Rage, now this one. No, I'm writing the sequel in my head. I will continue with the series until I get tired of it, until there's nothing new to say.
Okay, that leads into my next question. Do your characters come to you like read you, or do you just be like, no, I want to go check in on them, and then everything comes natural? Or do they just they're just constantly nagging in your brain like, no? It's like, are you one of those writers that let characters come to you, or do you like, I wonder what, like Wesley's up to right now? You just go go to a mental visit to go see Wesley and see what he's talking about and stuff.
Man, that is a wonderful question. It's part of, it's both. When I create a character, I have a template. I think about who he should be, his motivations, what he looks like, his style, his values, principles, and all of that in my head first, and I write it down, and then I start plugging in other stuff, and then they become real to me. And I will say, I wonder what Wes is doing right now, or I know it maybe sounds a little crazy. I wonder what Tonio's doing. What would he do in this situation? Yeah. So after I create these people, they become real to me, and I address them as real people to evolve them and to develop them further. It's a really interesting process.
And when you say you have a template, do the template is based on real people, or just do you?
Absolutely. I'll tell you that a lot of Wes is based on me, and I'm some of Tonio. And then also I know people, and I took pieces of people and dropped them into Wesley. So it's real because I believe in realism. And if you notice, when you read Frenzy, it's like you're a fly on the wall. And that's another reason why I wrote it in first person, because I wanted the reader to get this intimate view. It's like you're sitting with them as the action is going on. So to make these people real, part of me is in them, part of him is in them, part of him is in them. Because I wanted it to be as real as possible. Because the reader can tell if something's fake.
Right. So basically you're saying some of these characters are based on real people?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, who's Tonio? I want to know who's Tonio did. Who's Tonio based?
I'm not telling you that. I'm not going to rat on my people. But I will tell you that Tonio, sometimes I can have a trigger temper. I got that from my dad. Antonio sometimes has a trigger temper. Even though Tonio is 6'4", 280, he's nobody's gonna fuck with him. He has a big heart. I have a big heart. So yeah, a lot of me is in Wesley, and a few pieces of me are in Tonio, and I'm not telling you the other people's.
Why?
No. No, they'll come looking for me. No.
Well, in the whole book, who's one of your favorite characters?
Yes.
Oh wow, man. Oh jeez. You know what? If I say, they'll come and beat me up tonight. So I'm not gonna say. Yes.
Well, Patrick Marr said he's gonna buy the book. He said he's game set, and he is all ready for it. And he says, and he has a question: do you composite, or do you bring in clearly defined characteristics that are real?
Who's this person again, please?
Martin Patrick.
Oh, what's the question?
Again, okay, he asked, do you composite, Wyatt, bring in clearly defined characteristics that are real? I'm reading. Yeah.
I think I know what Dr. Patrick is talking about. My characters are a composite of other people. Like I said, for example, Wesley, a lot of Wesley is me. Then I have friends who I've taken characteristics from and dropped them into Wesley. So it is a composite. It's sort of like an amalgamation. You're infusing the characteristics of various people into your characters to make them real. So okay. A little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit over there.
Okay. And why frenzy? Why is frenzy the code word for, like, what is your, I guess, method for picking your code word for your for each chapter of Nothing Can Tear Us Apart? Because first we got Uncensored, then we got Rage, and now we have Frenzy.
Right. Another wonderful question. When you walk into a bookstore, guys, that will immediately catch your attention, even before you flip through the inside, is the cover and the title. The title really has to be catchy, and it can't be a lot of words either. I'm writing the Nothing Can Tear Us Apart series of novels, so that's the umbrella. But then I said, I need a catchy one-word title because that's probably what most people will remember. This is, you know, the whole series is about passion, excitement. So I wanted to create a one-word title to kind of say that with the evolution, because first is uncensored, then you become enraged, and then with his novel, as James will know, these folks are in a frenzy, right? So it's catchy, and it encapsulates your story, and it's like a step up in evolution, because with Rage, these people were upset, and there was a lot of lovemaking and passion, but Frenzy, it's upping it up. It's really upping it up. And I really had a wonderful time doing Frenzy, doing all of them, but a wonderful time doing Frenzy. And that's why I took my time to do it, because I had a ball.
Awesome.
Oh,
I see. Well, I'll call the book chaotic, but that's just my
yeah,
name for it. Or
but it made
twisted
you
turns.
think. But it made you, that's what you want, that dramatic tension. You know, you don't want, oh, he's walking down the street, he's walking down the street. You want to create dramatic tension. You want to take the reader to places he or she didn't think they were going to go.
Right.
Yes.
You know, but
Yes.
keeping the real life foundation, you have to make it rooted. You have to keep it rooted in real life.
Yes.
You know.
Now, here's another question I had, and I'm not gonna lie. I snatched this from my favorite podcast dealing with writing, which is 10-Minute Writers Workshop. The first question the podcaster asks her guests, and these are like people like, you know, top authors and whatnot, who some I haven't even heard of, but I'm asking you because it's a question that I believe. I'm just glad that somebody asked it, because it's something I always struggle with. Which is the hardest to write, the first sentence or the last?
The first.
Thank you.
Tell you why the first is the hardest to write, because number one, you have got to catch the reader's attention.
Right.
If you have a shitty, boring sentence paragraph, you're gonna put that book down. But if you has to have a hook. The first sentence, the first paragraph has to have a hook. It's got to have dramatic tension to draw the reader in. And if you can find that, you can really start rolling with your writing. It almost writes itself. It's like this buildup. When you know you have that first sentence and paragraph just right, it gives you confidence to keep going and to really please the reader. And it builds and builds and builds, and then you can last words. But if that author has a crappy first sentence, first paragraph, the reader's going to shut it down.
Right.
They're not going to read it. Yeah.
I put down plenty of book because
Mhm.
because you read that first page, like, okay, there's nothing interesting. And put it back down.
Yeah, and it's funny because it's some writers, and I'm talking about Faulkner. We had to read a Faulkner book, and I'm going to come, but he had a long run-on sentence for a page and a half. That was nothing but just a big long sentence. I had to put the book down, but I'm glad you said that. Why that the first one? Because a lot of people were saying that the last sentence is always there. I'm like, no, it's the first, because that's like you said. You have to set that tone.
Right.
You have to grab them.
And you want the author invested. And you have to realize as an author that it's a privilege for the reader to read your stuff. And you don't want to waste his or her time. Their time, the reader's time is valuable, and that's how you have to treat writing that book. You have to say to yourself, why should I read this book? Why should I waste the time? Why should I use the time to read it? Why should I spend my 15, 20, 25 bucks? Why?
Right. Well, at the same time, I kind of get why some people say the last word, because that's going to be the last thing you remember when you close the book.
True.
Yeah,
I give you that. Go ahead, Watson.
you know what, James? I see their point, but let's put it this way. The first sentence, the first paragraph in that first chapter is the most important.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I totally agree, but I understand where that can come from, because you read the whole book, and if the ending is bad, it kind of messes up the whole tone of the book, if you know what I'm saying.
That's
but
true.
I totally agree. When you try to set that tone, that with anything, with videos, when you edit videos or whatever, the first day you try to set that first tone, because when you go to the movies or anything, that first tone of the movie set everything.
Exactly.
You got to give them the first chapter, the first page, or something like that. And speaking of the writing process, how long was the writing process for Frenzy, and how long do it take for your? How long does it take for you to write any of your pieces? But Frenzy, most important. Like, how long did it take you to finish this book?
Actually, I was going to release it last year, but I decided to take my time with it more because I was dealing with along with the intimate partner violence and abuse, I was dealing with mental instability, and I was dealing with sexual child abuse, and I needed to do more research about that and feel more comfortable about it. So I just took my time. Frenzy took me with research and writing. I put it through like 3 editing cycles, I believe. It took me 15 months. Yeah.
Okay.
It took me I mean, I could have finished it quicker, but I don't think I would have been happy with the results.
Okay, so you just take your time. Okay, that's not a problem. I appreciate that. And also, there was James. You got one? Because I have another question. I'm just trying to hold off. I'm trying to hold it. That's not like my trump card. Go
okay, because like I said, we're gonna try to wrap it up because we don't want to make it too long. But I was about to ask, basically, have you any thoughts on your next book, or have you come up with a name for your next book yet, or that one word, or that one word, or that one word that you want people to stand out from?
You know what? That's another good question. You know what people are saying? Okay, you did Uncensored, you did Rage, now it's Frenzy. You should make the next one Insanity. I said, well, who knows? I might do that. But I'm writing the next installment of Nothing Can Tear Us Apart in my head right now. I'm writing a really fast-paced stories, because I haven't written short stories in quite a long time. So it's going to be like a small book of short stories that are really fast-paced. I'm a soap opera guy with cliffhangers at the end. And you're going to say, what the fuck?
Love it.
Why did this end?
What?
So,
well, I ain't going to say it. Never mind. I'll let y'all read it. But what was your question, Mark? Well, your last question.
Well, that was a trump card. I thought you had something else to ask him, but I wanted to see what was his next piece going to be, so.
Okay. Well, before we go, tell everybody where they can find the book, where they can get the book, how much the book costs.
My pleasure. The book costs $100. No, I'm just kidding. No, you can part Frenzy from all online book retailers. Now, if you get Frenzy from WyattEvans.com, that's WyattEvans.com, you will get your very own special 20% discount. So order from WyattEvans.com.
Oh no, yeah. Hold the book up. Hold the book up. You gotta do the you gotta do the Vanna White.
This is my baby. Can you see it?
Oh,
Can you see that?
yes. Oh, I don't know if 'cause I remember you had like a trailer that's probably coming out soon, or
Oh, let me tell you about that. Almost, and the trailer's been up for 2 weeks. Almost 6,000 views on YouTube. Almost 6,000 views. So all you got to do is Google "Nothing Can Tear Us Apart" Frenzy, Wyatt O'Brian Evans YouTube, and it pops up. It's a hot trailer. It's almost 6,000 views in 2 weeks.
right.
Yes.
Can't beat that with a
Yeah.
stick, y'all.
Oh, or paddle either.
Ooh.
Right. Well, like I said, lastly, because I know you do a radio show as well. Tell them quickly about your radio show. 'Cause I know you said you're gonna be coming back with that. So what can they expect from your radio show?
My radio show is bold, dashing, provocative. The Wyatt O'Brian Evans Show, and I interview leaders in the community, actors, porn stars. Oh, I have a good time interviewing porn stars, singers. So people in the LGBT community from different walks of life. Like I said, community activists. I do shows specifically on intimate partner violence and abuse because I want to continue to shine the light on it because, it tends to be swept under the rug in our community, particularly where men are concerned. So it's like a cornucopia of guests and themes and issues that I deal with. And I should be back like in January.
Nice. Well,
Yep.
the Big Boy Project got some church news that they want to put out there.
Yeah, the best year you did it.
Because I'm trying to come out with a mini magazine. That'll probably be around January or so. And Wyatt said he'll write a piece for it. Mark said he'll write something for it. So I'm excited. It gonna come out middle of December. I'm gonna try to get it out by then. So y'all look forward for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
The Big Boy Project. Thank you, James and Mark.
right.
Oh, we appreciate having you here.
Yes. Oh, don't worry, you'll be back.
We'll get all wrapped up in the frenzy.
Yes, and the screamer all the way from across the pond. We'd like to thank Martin Patrick or Dr. Patrick for his comments. He has a lot of them, and I appreciate you joining us tonight. And we couldn't get them all answered, but I mean, we didn't answer questions, but he asked one question. But we appreciate your,
interaction with us.
interaction. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Patrick.
So
like I said, we'll like this video, share this video. And we'll probably have another video up Thursday. So look out for that. And we see you guys later. Peace out, y'all.
peace.
Thank you. Have a good night.